Hey everybody, Brent from the Similitude of Prague here. I hope everybody's well. Today on the show, I've invited Matt O'Leary to come on and we're going to discuss the Steven Wilson solo albums in kind of a tier list. So grab yourself a drink and come listen to two music nerds talk about Steven Wilson.
At the failing of the day, she heard her father always say, remember, it's only the start. It's only the start. When she drifted off to sleep, she had the whole world at her feet, because it's only the start. It's only the start. Before they fell away, it seemed to matter all the same, but it was only the start. It's only the start. It's only the start.
Hey everybody, it's Brent from the Similitude of Prague. I have a very special guest tonight, Mr. Matt O'Leary. How are you, Matt?
Doing great, Brent. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, excellent. So are you much of a Steven Wilson fan?
A little bit,
Yeah.
I'd say. Yeah, just a little bit.
Would you say more than Porcupine Tree, or?
It's tough to say. They're pretty even for me.
Yeah.
I'd say there are a few Porcupine Tree albums that probably rise above any Steven Wilson album.
Yeah, I would agree.
But as a whole, I'm pretty obsessed with everything he's done. So
Have you listened to the new one much?
Yeah, it's been just on constant repeat, trying to figure it out. It's quite tricky.
It's diverse, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and it's just like it's a real thinker, which he wants. I get the sense that he's like, he's going for the most intellectual album that he can possibly.
Yeah, I get that feeling too.
Muster up. Yeah.
Right.
And you, how long have you been a fan?
Oh, I was kind of introduced to him through maybe In Absentia or Deadwing. I've been following him quite since then and up till now, obviously.
Okay. So when those albums came out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think he's one of the best, not just prog musicians, but musicians in general, with all the different styles and stuff he's able to do coherently, and it all sounds good.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, just his breadth. He does production. He's a musician himself, but he also is able to gather this incredible cast on so many of his solo records, especially of musicians. So just his network and his ability to kind of draw out from them the best is, he's a special one for sure.
Yeah, he made quite a name for himself, even on the remixing of old albums, the Tull albums, and all that.
Yeah, are you a Gentle Giant fan?
Yeah, I haven't heard any of the remixes. I kind of struggle. Should I go and buy them? Because I have most of them on, record or CD, original recipes, and I'm like, do I need to spend money on that?
I'll just say across the board, I think it's worth it. I've always found that he's brought something new in everything he's done. So especially like albums that you really love, it's worth it to check it out.
The big one I heard, know quite well is his Aqualung, and Is It Ever Different?
Yeah,
a lot more crisp. It's because it needed it pretty bad.
Right. Yeah, and I see you got the tour T-shirt. I've got that as well. I was pretty close to wearing it, so we're in good company.
Excellent. Well, what we're going to do tonight is we're going to kind of rank these, meet in the middle, so to speak, of where these albums should end up on the tier list here. So I'll let you go first and think, where should Insurgentes be?
Yeah, so it's difficult with these. There's always a question of, is the rank like amongst all music, or is it just relative to their own music? Because I feel like with Steven Wilson's music, it's going to be all fairly high for me, if you're just looking at the general music scene and comparing it to that. I have a really difficult time putting any of his albums Like C just feels insulting to me. So I'll just kind of get that out of the way as a precursor. But Insurgentes might be my most surprising pick. I'm not sure. It seems to not be, among the top for most. It's an A for me, I would say. There are some that will exceed that, but I think all of the kind of cold moments on this album, all the more dreary post-punk inspired things, electronic inspired things, noisy minimalist type stuff, works better on this album than it does on any of his other ones. For me, there are definitely some not classic prog parts to this. That's an understatement, but all those parts, I like the songs of all those a lot more than some of his other experiments on later records.
Oh, yeah.
In that same vein.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty consistent, even though it's like all over the place as far as style goes. It's not like a consistent listen genre wise. It's consistent quality for me.
Yeah. I wouldn't rate it quite as high. I was going to put it in the B section, but I understand the merit of it. Being his first solo album, it is really good, and doesn't veer too far away from the prog. So I'll be happy to put it in A. I can accept that.
Is there like we should have a veto rule for the host or something? You can outrule me if you
well, if I have to, I will, but that's a pretty good choice anyways. I'm good with that.
I think the opening track is just kind of one of his classics.
Mm-hmm.
Really sticks with me. But there's a lot of, like I mentioned, there's some like very minimalist stuff on this thing. Like there's some just kind of piano-led songs. The one that's in Spanish, like the fourth track, it has it's very dark and moody and minor. And then all of a sudden, like when the chorus hits, it like lands on this major chord progression, and it just completely changes the mood, but it's still just like minimalist. Like the instrumentation doesn't change at all.
No, and it works so well too, because that's one of my favorite songs on the album.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really a moody piece, but I really like it. It's got a nice calming effect.
For sure. Yeah, it's just like such cool writing, how just a simple chord change can like, whoa, I did not expect that. And the song feels completely different.
Exactly. And Harmony Codex, like you said, is a real good song, which I'm surprised he doesn't do live. Because I mean, it would have so much energy, and I think it would get the crowd quite pumped.
Yeah, I haven't seen him too many times, but I'm surprised he doesn't play that. If he doesn't.
All
Any
right.
other standouts on that one for you?
I like the title track.
The last song?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Nice feel to it, and I'm not sure what that stringed instrument he plays at the end is called. I think it's a Japanese instrument, if I'm remembering right. Should have looked that up before we started.
Is it not piano on that one? For some reason, I remember it as.
It might be, because it's got a real string sound to it, but it very well might be a piano.
Yeah, I'd have to listen to it again, but
yeah, me too.
there's like maybe a dulcimer or something. I'm not sure.
Could be
like that. Nice. Yeah. So this one, I think just amongst fans, it's not quite as popular, especially coming after Porcupine Tree, because people are disappointed about the breakup. So
yeah, nobody talks about it.
Yeah, it does seem to be forgotten, so and outshadowed by some of the later ones.
For sure. All right, moving on to Grace for Drowning. I would place this album in the A tier as well. Doesn't quite reach Raven, obviously, but I kind of think it's a continuation of Insurgente, and everything is just one step above. He's finally figuring out who he is as a single musician and what he's allowed to do in his framework. And it leads obviously to two great albums afterwards.
Yeah, it's interesting that you compare it to that one. I think there's a lot more like jazz on this thing. Lots more like really heavy sections of soloing. But I would totally agree with you that it's in the A for me. It was actually tough. I was kind of leaning between A and S. Because there's a lot of really great stuff.
What are your highlights from it?
It's tough to say. Sometimes it's tough to like recall songs,
Yeah.
Deform a Star is probably one of my favorite.
Oh, that's one of my least favorite on that album.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's more poppy. It's a little more like commercial, but it really clicks with me.
I find it a real dark album too.
It definitely is dark.
Yeah.
Especially with some of the soloing, like it really gets like tortured and like treacherous and heavy, pretty heavy. Raider 2 is just
that's
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's just like a trip. But I do like some of even the prelude to that.
Yeah.
Just some of the ambient stuff is pretty cool.
Postcard's kind of a neat little song. Sorry to interrupt you.
I do like that too. Any little pop moment from Steven Wilson, I'm a fan.
Yeah, he's very good at it.
Yeah. I like the instrumental being second. That's kind of surprising because you kind of expect this big like statement piece with vocals and stuff, but he just hits you with an early instrumental.
Yeah, it's a good one too. That's definitely a highlight.
I think the connection, what you were saying of Insurgentes, for me is a song Index.
Oh yeah.
Definitely draws from the same kind of like thinking man thing that Steven Wilson has going on.
Another one I really enjoy is Remainder of the Black Dog.
Mm-hmm. Can't really bring it to mind, but
no, it's another kind of Raider 2 kind of a slow build up, and I think Steve Hackett does the guitar solo on that song.
I knew he was on here somewhere, but that's the one he's featured on.
Yeah.
Nice. I'll have to listen back to that. With that in mind, it totally changes the
definitely
experience. Can you is it very Hackett-esque? Like, can you tell that it's?
Yeah, it is. You can tell it's him.
Yeah.
If you know his style enough, you can hear it. Yeah.
Nice.
Which I think he's really good at gathering great musicians to help him out. He always has been right from the start with Porcupine Tree, right till now.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's interesting to think about like how he coaches them and how much he dictates what the composition is going to be.
Yeah, you got to wonder how much space and room he's given them and what they can do and not do.
Yeah, I'd imagine a guy like Hackett, you don't really like tell him what to play. You give him like the chord sequence or whatever, and and maybe the mood or the feeling you're going for.
Maybe that's all he needs is just to play by feeling.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yeah, this one is it's very long, and
yeah,
it's one that like the new one, I have to continuously dig. Like it's just always a bit of a mystery. There's always stuff on there that I'm like, oh, I can't remember that, or I don't recognize that. It's complex for sure.
Yeah. Well, over the last couple of weeks, I've been kind of just incorporating them into my listening just so I can get a refresher on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was a cool one where you're a record collector, right? You got a lot of CDs up there.
I've got the disease for social or for media. Yeah.
Yeah.
It must be a generation thing. I don't know. What do you think?
On Who's a Collector?
Yeah,
I think well, definitely like millennials like me are swept up in the rage of vinyl again.
yeah,
Like, it kind of came from my dad, so I'd like to think that I was, I would have had it anyway if it wasn't for the trendiness of it all. But
yeah.
this was one that my wife, this album she got me, probably like one of her least, like if I can just imagine putting something on that she would hate, it's probably the parts of this album.
Oh yeah, I know the
So it's
feeling.
kind of funny.
She would rather listen to the Future Bites, which is fine.
Yeah, yeah. Just some of the like the intense jazz soloing and
Yeah.
stuff she's probably not into. But I do I like physically remember, that birthday or whatever it was and getting this.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's a tier then.
I'm gonna put it in A. I believe it's definitely worthy of that. So where are you gonna put the Raven?
Yeah, it's straight to the top, eh? Not too much discussion there.
Nope. It's almost a given.
Yeah, it really is, as far as the classic prog sound goes. It's his most just like comprehensive statement.
Yeah.
Um, there's so many moments. I think for me, the emotion of the drive home solo is like peak Steven Wilson just across his discography.
I would even go on record and say that's one of the best solos in prog history.
Mm. Yeah, it's like right when you think it's climax, it just gets even better.
Yeah, it gets into a second gear, and
Yeah.
I love the title track too.
Me too. Yeah, it's an interesting one because it doesn't really even have like a chorus. It's just
Yeah,
like two separate sections throughout the song, but the way it builds and those melodies are so great.
well, yeah, even the subject matter, it's a little more. I mean, it's still dark, but it's
Hmm.
maybe a little more easy to swallow compared to everything else on the album. It's probably the least darkest.
Yeah, it's still kind of like a ghost story
Yeah, very
type of theme,
somber.
right?
Mm-hmm.
If I can remember, it's something about someone's spouse dies or something, and then there's a raven that sort of represents them.
Yeah, it talks about his sister.
Sister,
Yeah,
okay. And he's like trying to get it to sing, and because it feels like he wants to like experience life with her again,
mm-hmm.
and it won't. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the heartbreak in the song. Yeah, I love just the whole ghost story uh theme running throughout the album. And there's even some of the stories that from it's been some time since I kind of looked this up and read about them, but that connect with each other. I think like the pin drop and the watchmaker are similar, like about married couples.
Yeah, they both mention it definitely.
Hmm. I love the watchmaker, how it goes from like this ornate, lovely Genesis-esque, acoustic guitar to that ending part that's like bum 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 bum,
Yeah,
like super heavy. It
yeah,
just like talk about like spanning moods within a song.
yeah. And the drumming on the end of that song is pretty wild too.
Yeah, it's just slamming.
Yeah,
That's Marco Miniman, right?
it
On that one.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a great drummer he is too.
He didn't play on Grace for Drowning, right? Just he started on this one.
Yeah, Gavin Harrison, I know, did quite a bit of the drumming on it.
On Grace for Drowning.
He's for Drowning, yeah.
Okay.
And even Insurgentes, I think he did a little bit on there too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he found the band is a big part of what makes this album.
Yeah.
Like he found the band
Wow.
with Miniman and Govan and
Adam
yeah,
Holzman.
Adam Holtzman. Even the horn player that goes on to play on Hand Cannot Erase too.
Yeah.
And
Oh, what is his name?
I'm trying to think of it.
I think he plays on the new album too. Theo something. Travis Theo.
Theo Travis, that's right.
Yeah, he's very gifted as well.
Yeah, it's really a spotless record. I can't fault it in any way.
Every cylinder is firing on it, and I don't think there's any negative thing you could say about it.
Yeah, unless you just totally don't love
But at
classic
the same
prog.
time, would you tell somebody to start there with his collection?
It depends on their taste, I think.
Yeah.
I think if they're really into older music and maybe they're skeptical about newer artists in general, that's probably one of the essential modern prog albums, if not the. And it really is just a connection point for people if they like the Big Five or Big Six from the 70s.
Yeah.
But if they like some more choruses and kind of hooks to bite into, then I don't think it would be. We're getting there.
Yeah. But yeah, I think leading up to that, I think Hand Cannot Erase would be a good introduction to somebody new to his music.
I agree. This, I'll just come out and say this is my favorite Steven Wilson album.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, are you A tier, S tier on this one, or
I'm A tier.
Okay.
But if you feel strongly that it's your favorite, I can understand and agree that very much. So I'll put that up with Raven because it's pretty close to it.
Yeah, what are your thoughts overall?
The biggest thing is you can see a lot of the pop sensibilities coming back. You can hear a little bit of To the Bone type of thing in it, and you kind of maybe know subconsciously that the next album is going to maybe be something completely different. That's always the vibe I got from it, that it was a transition album.
It's leading in that direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's some great stuff on it too.
Yeah,
Like
there's a good
practice.
balance. I think it's that mix. And I just recently did a Porcupine Tree ranking video, and Deadwing is my favorite Porcupine Tree album. And I just made the point that diversity within a track list is something that I really love. I actually like when it kind of slingshots me back and forth. There is a lot to be said about like a very cohesive, seamless listening experience, but I like when there's different moods and change ups. And this album kind of exemplifies that. I mean, there's definitely through lines, but every one of the songs sort of has its own like unique identity. And even just looking at the titles, I know what they are. Perfect Life, like that's not, is just so different from the rest of it.
Yeah.
But even the pop song Hand Cannot Erase.
I could see him closing most of his shows with an encore of that song.
Does he?
I don't know. I can just, it's that perfect type of song to me.
Right.
It would just be an absolute good way to end a concert.
Yeah. Speaking of songs that my wife doesn't like and likes, Hand Cannot Erase, the song is one of her favorite.
It's a good song.
Wilson tracks.
Yeah.
I remember this is one of those albums that just, like a lot of music, it just takes me viscerally to a very specific place. Like I can remember the time in my life and all the feelings and sights and smells of that time are back when I.
And does that for you make it more special? Because
it might. It's a complicated thing.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel about Raven.
Oh yeah.
Listen to it, I go right back to that period of time in my life, like it was still here.
Right. I think it channels the same excitement of like first hearing it and the first time the song started to click. Yeah, and music just has a unique way of doing that. And I'm sure, yeah, that's tied up in my love for it. I love how there's like, there's a song I can't get out erase, but then there's like the solo on Home Invasion, Regret Number 9,
Yeah.
and like that intensity. First Regret, 3 years older, like that first track. That is just a perfect composition to me. Like, every note I could sing along to. It's one of those instrumental pieces in prog that happens occasionally where you're singing all the guitar lines and the bass because so that's the one. Any other highlights for you?
I like Ancestral
Yeah, ancestral.
and Routine a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we should mention that this is the first time we hear Nanette Tayeb sing on a Steven Wilson album too, which I think she's incredible.
Yeah.
And I wish she was more popular as an artist. And
Yeah, I would
someday
love
she
to
will,
hear.
because she's got such a nice, amazing voice.
Yeah, definitely. Does she have any solo work or guest work on other? I'm sure she sings a lot on other
She
stuff.
does some solo stuff, but a lot of it's in Israeli.
Okay.
But there is some English stuff, and I've listened to it a few times, and it's really good. And there was even a rumor not that long ago that her and Wilson were going to get together and record an album of just her and him, kind of a thing. So that'd be neat. I'd go for that.
That'd be pretty special.
Yeah.
I think it'd be cool if it was like more acoustic or something.
Yeah.
Like toned back.
More pop oriented, perhaps.
Yeah, but not in like the 80s synth pop direction. Yeah. You mentioned that this is kind of a transition into a sound that maybe you don't like as much.
I don't know if it's necessarily I don't like as much. It's just a big change. Like all of the musicians I like Bowie, for example, he's got so many different styles that, and some are better than others, but I think it just foreshadows what's to come.
Yeah, for sure. Is that, do you think part of what kind of, sorry, I'm losing my voice a little bit. It's been a long day of talking at work, and what holds it back a little bit for you?
Yeah, I would have to say a little bit. And I'm not sure why. I like everything he does, so it.
Right. Yeah, this is like, slim margins here.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
And now we have To the Bone. What are your thoughts on it?
I like it.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be a theme now for the rest of the time. I like it, but it's like a completely different type of artist and music.
Yeah.
It's like my favorite music in this genre can't compare to my favorite music in the Raven. So even if he's executing it really well, the songs are good, they're catchy, they're enjoyable, he could do that at A+ level, and it's still not going to reach the heights of those other albums for me.
Yeah.
So I'd say just in comparison to the others, I put it at a B. But I do really have a lot of songs I enjoy a lot. There are some moments I really like cringe at, more so. People Eat Darkness. I'm not a fan of that song.
That's got some horrible lyrics too.
Yeah. Yeah. But I really like the Ninette songs on this, Pariah and Blank Tapes.
Yeah.
I love Nowhere Now, just like a really solid pop rock song. Same Asylum as before. I like that song a lot.
Yeah.
So there's more hits than this is for sure for me.
And you wonder with the strength of, say, Permeating, how that song isn't more well known, because anytime I've ever played it for anybody, whether they like this type of music or don't, they all agree that that's the perfect pop song.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, he nailed it. But it's also like there's a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek, ironic element to him doing a song like that like he's not part of the music or scene that he's embodying. He's like kind of
Exactly.
dressing up, you know?
Yeah.
Which kind of changes your perception, I think,
It
of it.
does, and that's how that whole album feels.
Right.
He feels like he's just decided to throw everything away he's done in the past and just do something completely different.
Yeah, he's playing dress up a
Yeah.
little bit. He's doing something that he admires from some of his favorite artists.
Yeah. So when To the Bone came out, did you find it kind of a letdown or anything like that? Were you expecting what he did?
I think Steven Wilson always does enough interviews and lead up to his albums that you sort of know what you're getting by the time it's released.
Yeah, he's not shy about speaking his mind, that's for sure.
Right. And he hasn't done a release that like stays a secret, except for this newest one, which really the hype for that album and the singles didn't come till a month before. But for this one, I felt like I knew going in. I don't think I was disappointed. This is a thing with artists that, especially in the prog world, there's a lot of like disappointment and like he's not doing the right thing. He's abandoning us or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That sort of mindset. And I never feel that way. I'm like happy to get what I get from great artists who I love, and I trust them. I think, like one of our buddies made this point recently with just like trusting someone who you truly respect to go where they want to go.
Yeah.
And even if it's not like my thing completely, I'm here for it and I'll take what I can get and leave the rest.
No, that's a good way of putting it. Especially with your favorite artists. It's, they're making the music for themselves, probably more for not the fans, but which is good too, because I think you don't rest on your laurels and fit into every cookie cutter out there and make something different. So
yeah, and it's
commended.
Right. I think like if you think about yourself, if you were a prolific solo artist, everyone has such a variety of tastes that are idiosyncratic and unique to them, from your childhood and your whole life. So I'm sure I would make a weird classical minimalist album or a math rock album or something like, totally out there and different if I was making 15, 20 albums over the course of my career. So like it's fine. It's fine, everyone. You can do these things.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
And then we have The Future Bites.
But as for The Future Bites,
yeah,
I'm just kidding. What do you think of the song?
As a pop artist and a poppy album, I think it's mediocre at best. There's some great stuff on there, but I think he's trying to fit too many things into it and mixing some cringy stuff in with it that just shouldn't be there. Personal Shopper, that song drives me nuts. I don't know what he was thinking with that.
Yeah, just lyrically, it's
just, yeah. Like King Ghost, I really like.
I like that one. Yeah.
What was it called? It's before it on the album.
Self. On the album before, or
No, on the Future Bites, the track right before it.
it goes, I'm looking at the track list now. It's Unself, Self, King Ghost.
Oh, what's after King Ghost?
12 Things I Forgot.
That's it. 12 Things. Yeah, that's another great song, and the last song on the album's good too.
I love that song.
Yeah.
I love 12 Things I Forgot.
Yeah.
Very simple, but just like, yeah, got me from the first listen. So yeah, you said there are certain ones that kind of rub you the wrong way, but
Yeah. Eminent Sleaze is another one that grates on my nerves.
yeah, I can't even really think of that one right now. But a personal shopper for me too is like, you're trying to like make a point, and it's kind of like akin to when he smashed the iPod on the ground. You know, it's like
Consumerism's bad.
get it, dude. Like it's a little too like ham-fisted or something. Yeah.
So I just where would you put it on the tier list?
I think I like To the Bone better
Yeah, me too.
overall as an album. I think I'd put this one at C.
That's where
Again, there's some moments I really like. 12 Things I Forgot. I like King Ghost. Self is all right. Man of the People's all right. But it's very hit or miss for me. And the whole like sort of 80s aesthetic, and when he even in King Ghost, like the verses of that where he's sort of there's not even a melody, he's just sort of like talking. It's more about like the personality and the I just don't I'm not into that sound. Wherever that's coming from is not really my favorite type of music. So
and
yeah.
I also think it was released at the wrong time. If it had been released originally when it's supposed to, I think it would have fared more better. Because it's something about the COVID, and I don't remember what the whole story was, but it didn't end up getting released until something like 2 years after it was already complete.
Was it that long?
Something like that. Maybe not 2 years, but it was definitely a lengthy time.
I do remember there was a pretty long promotional lead up, so that's probably what it was.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because we've got that first single, I think it was released a year before the album even came out, the Personal Shopper one. It was quite a while.
Yeah, by that time, like if you're listening when that comes out, you'd probably it's not like an album anymore.
No, it's bad marketing.
Yeah.
Because he released pretty much everything prior to its release, I think. So maybe that's what hurt it. I don't know.
Do you think it's sold a lot less? Do you know anything about that?
I don't know a lot less about it. Anything really about sale figures on everything.
I'm sure he doesn't really care about that and doesn't need to.
No.
His success, but I am curious if it picked up fans who are outside of the like typical prog fandom, you know, coming from his Porcupine Tree days. I'm curious if he's picked up people along the way because of some of the new sounds. I kind of well, I'm sure he has, just because of the pure numbers involved there, but I doubt it's like a huge percentage of his audience. I would still think that 90% are fans of Porcupine Tree and his history.
And I would agree that that's part of it. You know, you're going to follow your favorite artists throughout their career, no matter what they do. And I think it also alienated a lot of people too. I remember when it was released, it pissed people off. Nobody could really get into it, and got a lot of negative reviews. And
oh, for sure. Yeah, the prog diehards.
Oh yeah.
And there's nothing to see here.
No.
To the bone, there's still, you know, There's
Well,
there's a DNA there of
yeah, exactly.
solid songwriting and yeah, some of the same influences, but not on this one.
Definitely not.
Yeah,
Another,
I'd put it at C. I don't know. What
yeah,
do you think?
I don't know. C's fine. It's not a D. I don't think anything that he would ever release would be that low.
Yeah, just for me, Self King Ghost 12 Things I Forgot. That's already enough quality and
Yeah.
enjoyment for me that I would raise it above a D.
One thing I will say, though, is if you want to listen to something that's more positive and upbeat, you'll pick that album or To the Bone rather than The Raven or Hand Cannot Erase, or even Drowning, Grace for Drowning. Like it has
Yeah,
that going for it.
yeah, but I'd still say if someone's like just into pop, Permeating
Yeah.
and Nowhere Now are to me still better starting places.
Oh
I
yeah.
think if you like more of a cold 80s electronic aesthetic, then this would be a pretty good one to
Right.
go with. Yeah.
Now we have the final album. Well, not the final, but Harmony Codex.
Who knows? He could be done.
Yeah.
That stairway is like maybe a symbolic. He's going to drop off the edge there and never come back.
I've kind of wondered what that's all about, and I haven't come to anything worth repeating.
I think it's meant to be vague and applicable to just about anything, as a lot of good art is.
You can call it what you want.
Yeah. I have heard him say that there's the stairway concept and just the idea of like it's about the journey, not the destination. And the longer he's lived, he's learned that more so that some of the most exciting and important moments in his life have been about, you know, the journey and the unexpected things that came along the way.
Yeah, well, up to
Not the thing that he was shooting for.
Up to a few years ago, he didn't want to get married or have a family or anything like that because it would interfere with his music and stuff. But now he's married and got 2 stepdaughters, and
Yeah, that's great for him. It's pretty cool that he was able to just kind of keep on the pace with music too.
and I like your staircase analogy and the last song being called Staircase on the album. I didn't put those two together yet.
Yeah, it's the cover is very abstract, so it's kind of hard to get that. But I heard him say that in a little video that he put out, so I'll give him credit.
Yeah.
What do you think of this one? It's still pretty new.
Yeah, it is new, but I've listened to it countless times.
Yeah.
And I would put it up in the A section personally.
What makes it that?
Because I think you get the progressiveness of the first 4 albums. Not in sounds, but just the way he writes and performs. And then you get a little bit of To the Bone and the Future Bites, the good parts from those albums thrown in with it, and you get something that's a lot more appealing to the prog community and maybe less to the pop one. But that may be intentional, I don't know. But I think I rate it fairly high at A.
Yeah, I'd say the difficulty of the songs maybe is what makes it more appealing to the prog side.
Yeah.
Even though there, like you said, there's a good mix of pop sensibility there, and but there are certain songs which, if you're they really would only appeal to you if you like difficult music, like Impossible Tightrope.
Mm-hmm.
Actual Brutal Facts, Staircase, Beautiful Scarecrow, even the Harmony Codex. Like I could see people enjoying that as just an ambient, during your work day or something type of
the perfect
type
movie
of music.
score.
Yeah, but it also is pretty musically complex with the chord sequencing and stuff. So if you're dissecting your music in that way, then it can appeal to you. I think I agree with the A. It's really tough though. This has been one that I've like bounced back and forth on. I'm like having this internal battle of whether I like this album or not.
No, at first I was like, oh, I don't know what to think of this. Like it was pretty foreign sounding, and
Yeah.
the more I listened to it and the more accepted it. I think what actually did it for me is listening to it on headphones. It's definitely a headphone album.
Yeah, and that
A
kind of
lot
gets
happening.
into right. Yeah, there's quite a lot. I'm sure even more when you do like spatial audio and surround sound and whatnot. Atmos, if that's the
Yeah.
current.
Do you imagine listening to that on that
It'd
system?
be amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it almost he's almost convincing me and I'm sure others to like look into it, you know,
Yeah.
just to get to experience that because it'd be so awesome.
Sure.
But you kind of touched on a point I was going to make, which is I'm still like thinking this through, but kind of this like songwriting versus sound writing thing, which is something I've talked about on my channel before. But it seems that Steven is really enamored by really cool textures and sounds, uh, more or as much or even more than his affection for classic like Beatles songwriting and everything that stems from
No,
from
I
that.
would agree. Yeah.
That he really likes, especially things in the 80s and 90s that were more experimental and about texture and experimentation and non-traditional structures. And for me, I've always been more of a I'm really about the song. I'm really about melody, and the rest of it is like window dressing a little bit to me. So if it's purely about the sounds, then I'm usually not a huge fan. It's when you sort of incorporate the two. So when his music gets pushed too much in the sound focused direction and loses the song, it loses me a little bit. So there's moments of this album that feel that way to me, where he's more like, oh, look at what I can do. This is cool. This is awesome. Like I'm playing around in the sandbox here, but kind of the core of the song is lost a bit.
Yeah. Now, having said that, I think that's what, to me, anyways, draws me to him, because you will get those real basic sounding, great melody,
Mm-hmm.
and then you'll get stuff that's just, wow, all over the place.
Right. It's that balance of
It's that balance, and I love both of those styles. So to hear this album, I think that's why it places so high for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because there is a really good mix. You get like extremes on both ends, like What Life Brings, just a classic song in every sense. Yeah. Beautiful. And then you get Actual Brutal Facts or Possible Tightrope, which are just onslaught. That song. One that I really don't like is Rock Bottom, actually.
Really?
Yeah. I love Ninette's voice. There's no changes in the song. It's like 4 chords and it just keeps repeating. And it's very slow and just kind of like, I feel like it's this ballad.
Do you have a physical copy of the album yet?
I don't, actually.
Do
As
I, but
big of a fan as I am, I don't.
Amazon hasn't sent mine yet.
Oh yeah.
But that song actually was written by her.
Oh really?
Yeah, that's her own music. So maybe that's why it sounds a little bit the way you're saying, very simple. But I think it's effective. I don't think it's the best song on the album by far, but it's one I like because I love her voice. And that
her voice is amazing.
To just draw me in.
Yeah.
When I first heard Pariah, my jaw dropped. Wow.
Yeah, she's just got such a unique tone. It's like Yeah. I also I love Time Is Running Out. It's one of my kind of a deep cut favorite. Um, and then Staircase, the ending, probably up there. My favorite track on the album.
There's a wicked Chapman stick
Oh yeah,
in that song too.
it's got to be Nick Beggs, right?
Definitely, yeah. The one, the only.
Yeah, that is pretty sick.
Yeah,
Love that part.
I do too.
It, I wasn't super into Economies of Scale.
I wasn't at first, but the more I heard it, the more I thought it was catchy and stuff, but yeah, still not quite what I would say is a song for me, but I
Yeah,
don't dislike it.
yeah, it's fine. I'm really torn with this album. I don't even know what to say about it because it's just bringing me all over the place. But I think that aspect of like him being enamored with sound design
Mhm.
is for me like just on a purely subjective level what if anything brings down this album it's that piece because I feel like it sacrifices the other bit a bit for me,
No, I would agree.
at least in parts.
And that may be its biggest flaw. Very true.
But it's one that's brought on so much conversation and just
Oh yeah,
seems like you can sort of talk forever about it.
I'm interested to see what the rest of our peers think about it. I've been trying to avoid listening to reviews and stuff because I want to see how much of my review, when I finally get down to putting it on paper, compares with everybody.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't hold out. I had to listen to a couple from our group, but yeah, I'll do a review too. I'm sure you can't not do this.
No,
Yeah,
just finding the time.
right. For me, it's just like, what do I even think? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, if you're like me, it changes from day to day.
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
something one day, and the next day I'm like, what was I thinking? Then the next day I love it again. Like
There's
that's
also
why.
this aspect of reviewing where you're trying to decide just on a like one or the other, black or white. You know, do I like this? Do I not like this? And it's
Well,
rarely that simple.
yeah.
But it's boring to just say like, oh, it's a 7 or 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
You know,
But at the same time, I'm not going to mention names, but when you only have an album that's released on this day and you do review a day and a half later, how many times have you listened to it? I have to listen to the hell out of an album before I have my opinion on it. It does not come that quick to me.
yeah, I can understand that for sure. It definitely takes me time too. I'm a little bit more deliberate and slow about that. But
Yeah.
there is something to just someone who's able to react and just give like an emotional kind of gut feeling, which I like too.
Yeah, I like that too, but my brain doesn't work that way. I'm
Mm-hmm.
more like you say, kind of analyzing it and listening to it and picking things out of here and there. And
Right. Yeah, this was one where even the first 4 or 5 listens, I still didn't quite have my head around it.
yep.
So yeah. Cool. All right. So A, we
Yep.
solid on
I'm
A then?
solid with that.
Well, I don't see the tier list, but
You don't see it?
anything feel off to you?
No. I think we did a good job. I think pretty much in line with what I would have placed his albums in a solo ranking. So no,
Yeah.
I'm happy with it.
It's there's not much range.
No.
A lot of S and A,
Yeah.
but I'm fine with that because that's yeah, really how I feel. So
Me too. Yeah. Well, all right. That's been a great time. Thanks, bud.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Thanks so much for having me. I
Great.
appreciate it. And I don't really have a ton of guests on my channel, but I've wanted to start doing that. So I'll definitely have to have you on at some point.
Yeah, for sure. I noticed you have a solo album out. Well, maybe not a solo, but an album out.
Yeah,
Yeah. Why don't you tell people about it?
sure. Yeah. Last year around this time, actually, it's been exactly a year. I put out a solo album, which I had been working on for a long time. I'm not a recording specialist or a tech in that aspect does not come naturally to me, but the songwriting and stuff does. And that's the part that I enjoy. So more so just trying to get the things that were in here out there, and finally was able to make it happen and wrangle people and friends and others to play different instruments and help me out. But it's called Dichotomania. It's kind of like in acoustic singer-songwriter vein, but there's definitely a lot of progressive elements there.
Thanks. And how can people purchase it off you?
They can go to Bandcamp, just my name, Matt O'Leary. It's called Dichotomania, so like dichotomy, but with mania at the end, one word. And it's also on all streaming, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music. It's got a big grapefruit cut in half on the front cover. So, yeah.
Yeah. So make sure you guys go and check that out for sure.
Thanks for bringing it up.
Oh, no problem. Glad I didn't forget. All right. I won't take any more of your time tonight. So
It's been good, Brent. I appreciate it.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for coming on. And this is real fun.
Definitely.
All right.
Have a good night.
Yeah, you too. Bye.